breaking story, given that there were so many people that were involved in this operation. And as we speak, there's a picture of the operation uh, in motion on our screens. I understand that the operation was very complex, it was slow, because as you have indicated, the sand was very, very dynamic. It was very loose sand there. And it also involved all sorts of machinery to try and tunnel and get all of the rocks and the sand to reach the child. And of course, there's been a huge wave of sympathy across the globe. How is the family holding up now, and the people in the village? How is the
So,
family holding up?
like, I think symbolically, what happened is very important because usually we have this impression that a rural little boy, no one will care about him, even if he dies. The value or the weight of his life is not so important. So I think at the symbolic level, the fact that Moroccans did move mountains as metaphorically and literally for this little boy, it was very, very strong, a strong message that instigated the solidarity of everyone and brought everyone together. And this reflected on the parents that are, of course, saddened by what happened, but also confident. I think like there were lots of volunteers. There was a football player, a Moroccan football player who donated a house, a fully furnished house for his family. There was someone in Saudi Arabia who was taking care of them going to the Hajj, the whole family. So there is that kind of solidarity and love that would help, of course, the family overcome this event. But of course, like what could replace the son? So it's very sad, and I hope his family and the Moroccan people would walk through this grief. And what some of my friends there on the ground, they said that this little boy had a dream. He was always saying, "I'm gonna become a teacher when I grow up," and I think he eventually taught us something. So he was a teacher even in his little age. He taught us how to come together, the value of working towards one goal, the value of building something together just for this one little boy, and the value of the human life.
Well, he undoubtedly, his dream of becoming a teacher has been realized, even though it was realized in his death, because he's taught us the price of the value of humanity. And so very many people came out in their droves to assist this family. I'm looking at some more pictures flashing on my screen of scores and scores of people in the region, or at that area of where the little boy fell down the hole. There are just hundreds and hundreds of people there. So yes, he's taught us how to be human again in this world of madness, in this world of greed, in this dark world that we live in. And all we can say is Alhamdulillah for that. Um, this, this,
And
this
and just to add, also lots of people they were like, why we don't have solidarity with other children in Yemen, in Syria, like other Muslim children that are enduring similar, if not worse, situation. And I would just answer that the heart has a logic that's not logical. And I think maybe that metaphor of being in the pit or being in the well all that time is how we felt even during the pandemic, and how we are feeling in this neoliberal system that spies in, Muslims and making us stuck in a pit, and waiting for that kind of divine or otherworldly rescue to come, that salvation from up there. So I think maybe that's one of the secrets why people were spontaneously drawn into this story. Even people from different faiths and different religions and races, they all had sympathy with this one little boy in an unknown village in northern Morocco.
Let's not forget the lessons learned from this tragic incident in Morocco. What would you say, Sarah? What should we hold on to and remember Rayan as the teacher that he had dreamt of being? What do we take with us going forward as humankind?
It just teaches us, you know, as parents, that every child is the child of all of us, is the child of all human beings. And it takes not a village to raise a child, it takes the entire world to save a child. And he taught us that. He just reconnected us with the very basic human values and sympathy that we have in us and empathy. And also he taught us maybe some hard lessons about, you know, how we manage this disregarded wells, and how we should really make sure that we cover these hazards. And also he taught us the value of children supervision, and that parents should be more cautious about their little kids, especially in similar settings, in the mountains or in the countryside. And these are like also some hard lessons, but also some good lessons, that even in a third world country that's not often in the headlines of the news, people could come together and they could mobilize resources and do their best to move mountains. Everyone, specialist says, the amount of rocks and soil that was moved from that mountain would have taken at least typically 1 month, but they did it in 5 days, non-stop, night and day, just with the perseverance and with the hope of rescuing this little life.
And that's where we leave it. What also comes to mind earlier on in the interview, you mentioned Syria, and we do know the story of the little child that froze to death last week, a Syrian child. So let us start thinking about all these things. Let this be lessons learned to save our children. Let's do everything possible as activists, as human rights activists, to save the children and to save the future leaders of tomorrow. Sarah, Zaaimi, shukran for being with us on the show this morning. Past our deepest condolences to the family of Rayan and to the Moroccan people from all the South African Muslims. Pass on our deepest condolences and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much and have a good day.
And you. It is exactly 20 after 8. And just before I go, what comes to mind as I was speaking with Sarah Zaaimi about the tragic ending to this drama of the Moroccan child Rayan that fell into a well, and the Moroccan people and authorities took 5 days to try and save him. They did everything possible to save this little life. Let's not forget, let's not forget. Uh, the accident that echoes a tragedy in Spain in early 2019 when a 2-year-old child died after falling into an abandoned well 25 centimeters wide and more than 70 meters deep. His name was Julian Rosello, and his body was recovered after a search and rescue operation that lasted 13 days. But coming back home, it absolutely sickens me when I think about the precious little lives that have been lost year after year in the rural areas and the not so rural areas of our little darlings falling down pit latrines and losing their lives. What do we say about that? We are accountable for that. If our government can't do anything to do away with pit latrines, then we as a community and human rights activists need to come together and make sure that we don't see such tragedies again here in South Africa. It's totally unacceptable and unforgivable for those things to happen. And as I end my thought on this very heartbreaking discussion, let us also talk about the Rege Park mother who is grieving grieving as we speak for the loss of her 7-year-old and her 9-year-old boys that got that lost their lives outside Rega Park on a mine dump. The company that owns the site haven't as yet commented on how and why the tragedy took place, but that's also something to talk about. We'll try and cover that story tomorrow when more details are to hand. 8:22 exactly, news and views right here on Salam Media.
Little bare feet